All right, here we go. We're going to mute everybody and then start the intro.
Welcome back to the Ridgeline Hunting Podcast, brought to you by Phelps Game Calls, with your hosts, David Crane and David Sandana.
All right, everybody, welcome back. We have a special guest here with us today. It is Dirk Durham with Phelps Game Calls. Dirk, how are you?
I'm doing good. Just trying to make it through winter, right?
Yeah. Now, Dirk, where are you right now? Where are you from?
I live in the Boise area, so Idaho.
That's what we thought.
Yeah. Been here about 2 years. Been an Idaho resident for a really long time. Moved down here a couple of years ago from North Idaho and be closer to family and more amenities and better internet and better doctors and I mean, you name it.
Yeah, the internet's an important part. So,
the internet's important.
So can you just tell our audience exactly what you do with Phelps Game Calls, what your role is with the company?
So I'm the marketing manager at Phelps, which that's my title. But man, I do so many things besides that. I'm a jack of all trades, if you will, master of none.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, awesome.
But my day consists of, whether it be social media management, content creation, whether I video something or I'm editing stuff, writing up a treatment for a video project, working on packaging. We've got a lot of new products coming out, and I work with one of our contractor graphic artists, John Gabriel, buddy John. Him and I work together on packaging, making sure the aesthetics right, making sure the looks right, and has all the right information on them. I used to do a lot of project management with Jason as far as new products and stuff, but I've kind of transitioned out of that role. But I still do a lot of R&D with Jason. Mm-hmm. So anything that's new products and stuff, we're always working on new stuff there. So that's coming across my desk. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, how exactly does the R&D work with like game calls? Are you doing that just solely in the field after you assemble a product? And
so from the very, very first idea, so we talk about an idea, Jason or myself will put it down on a cocktail napkin or something similar, scratch paper, and try to have each other understand the concept and what it's going to look like and what kind of a problem we're going to solve with it, for the hunter, and then go from there. Then we work with an engineer who will make drawings, and we have to go through several different iterations of the drawing. So the first one, he'll come back to us and say, okay, this is what your cocktail napkin meant to me. Does that look anything like what you guys had in your mind? And then we say, yeah, kind of, or yeah, that's perfect. But then we kind of dial it in from there until it looks really good on paper. So for instance, a project earlier this winter we were working on, everything said, oh yeah, this probably would work. So we got just fine-tuned this thing down to the nitty-gritty, and then we prototyped it. So we sent it off to a company to have a prototype to come back in, and it was a flop. It didn't work at all, and it didn't work at all. And we just bagged the concept. It's like, well, we're done. But that's the funny part about it is, people don't realize, the cost that goes into the R&D, the research and development of any kind of new product from starting from just scratch. So just the man hours involved, the engineering costs, and then prototype samples. They're not cheap. When you have 4 or 5 samples built, you could be spending $1,500 every time you do that. So it adds up really quick, and the cost of the research and development, definitely. So, yeah, but it's fun because a lot of times, that's been like our only project lately that's kind of blown up in our face. But like our Easy Bugler, for instance, that thing we worked on that for 2.5 years, probably, just working on it just slowly because there were so many little nuances to make sure it sounded right. It was easy to blow, and we wanted to make sure it was good. We didn't want to release something that was just like, well, I kind of think it's good. So it took a long time from the first iteration, which was very awkward and crappy, to what it is now. So, and we continue to refine it. So we've had one inline rolling change to the revision of it, and there'll probably be another couple coming down the road, just trying to make it better and easier to produce. Because those things are super expensive. Some of the things that we build are pretty expensive to build, a lot more than a guy might think.
Yeah. This, I was involved in some manufacturing of a product that I had developed, and everybody's like, man, I could make that out of a stick. You're sitting here, you're like, dude, you don't understand. I had 3 different aerospace engineers go over this product. These are guys that I know because in the Northwest, we have a lot of aerospace folks, and they're your neighbors and friends, right?
Yeah.
So I call on these people, and I said, hey, how could you do this thing? I have an idea. And he's like, oh, come over to the house. We'll have some coffee. So he pulls up his computer, and he's got SolidWorks Suite. It's like all the engineering things you can make, and it communicates with all CNC machinery. So like every different manufacturer has their own software. Well, SolidWorks is like universal language to that stuff. So going through this R&D process with my product, which is for construction, it was difficult because I saved a lot of the initial costs. But what you're talking about, like just a mold for a bugle tube, it could be $25,000 for an injection mold. And you're like, hey, let's go ahead and just make this random shaped thing, and hopefully it works. And people don't understand that upfront cost. They think this stuff is just like, I don't know how they would make it, Like in the process of manufacturing, a lot of people don't understand there's so much involved in it, and you hope it works, And I had, just on mine, I had 4 samples I had to have engineered and done. But when you make the small quantities, they're way more expensive. I mean, you have to make them in mass to bring the cost down. So people say, something that's $6. Well, I had to make 35,000 of them. It's like, that's
a chunk of change.
Yeah. $200,000, $300,000 at a time to get a one read, because the cost would be so high if you only made just one read.
Yeah.
Right. And then no one's going to give you $30 for one, or $40 or whatever, it would be at that exponentially higher cost. So I totally understand, man. I feel your pain, and I'm not envious, but it sounds like a fun job.
Yeah, it's fun, and it's funny and a little bit frustrating. Everybody wants everything made in the USA, and we've been working super hard and diligent to like bring and have as much stuff built in the USA as possible. Like all of our deer calls that we just came out with, they're built in the USA.
Nice.
A lot of our stuff is built and assembled here in the USA. But we've been looking at some new products, and you talk about molds. A mold in the United States is going to cost you double. So if it costs you $20,000 offshore, it's going to cost you $40,000 here in the United States.
Yeah.
And then when you start talking about specifics and guaranteed tolerances and stuff, it's been our experience from the people we've put this thing out to quote to, is they don't want to adhere to the plus or minus tolerances on the finished product, on a injection molded product or a blow mold product. So where they want you to pay right up front for the mold that may or may not work accordingly to how you told them to make it work. Mm-hmm. And then if it doesn't work, then they'll charge you to make any updates, which would be several $1,000s. Whereas offshore, they're super easy to work with, and they're determined to make sure that you get what you need and to your specifications. So, I mean, I guess they're willing to, eat a little bit of that cost here and there, and then they try to make sure it's, they try to build in as many efficiencies into the process as possible. But man, some of the people we've tried to do stuff here in the States with, it's just like, man, they seem to be a little hungrier. Or they just, everybody says bring back more jobs in the United States, bring more manufacturing in the United States. But geez, at least bring
somebody that wants to work.
Hey, I'll tell you what.
They don't seem that hungry to me. So.
Yeah. So a friend of mine, he has a company that they make injection molded shower drains. It's a pretty big company. Well, it's a small company, but they're known worldwide. And he actually went and had his molds made overseas initially, his first molds. And what he told me is that, like in China, they've been building molds for a lot longer than we have most recently. So they're really good at it. So they'll make a mold, like they can make a mold and it's really good on tolerances. And the one issue that he had ran into was whatever you're making inside that mold is going to either like cool down and shrink or stay the same size. So you're either fits or it shrinks after. So once it comes out of the mold, it might fit the mold, and then when it cools down, it's smaller than the mold. So there's other challenges like environmental things that happen in order to make those tolerances stick. And a lot of people just don't want to say, oh, well, we're going to make sure it's right. I ran into the same thing with injection molding my product. They were like, it's not going to work because of, it's going to shrink
X,
or
Y,
it's going to twist or whatever when it cools, and the product wouldn't work. But there are so many challenges to manufacturing. It's crazy, but I look forward to a day when we do get it right over here and everybody gets, a lot more practice under their belt and starts dialing in and take personal ownership for your product. Have some pride in your craft, and it's a good thing Phelps is living up to that. So we've been happy with the products and everything for years.
Yeah, definitely. I want to say right after Jason posted his website, I was like one of the first ones to get like a custom easy cow call.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
Like one of the first customers.
He's like, I'm going to get number one. Ping. Not a problem. We'll try this.
Yeah, I've had it ever since.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Still works.
So the cool thing about that one, the cool thing about that new cow call, we were able to build that one in the United States. So
now, are you talking the Phelps Easy Sucker?
Yeah, the new Easy Sucker.
Yeah, that thing's freaking sick.
Yeah,
I like it. It's so easy to use.
So we're going to continue to do, produce stuff here in the USA if at all possible. The costs are going to be more here, of course, but once you start looking at import taxes and stuff like that, a lot of it, as piece for piece is you're not that far off, and we want to support USA and build everything we can here. But sometimes you just kind of run into manufacturing issues where nobody wants to make it. So,
yeah, that's happened. That happens,
Yeah, I mean, it does happen, and I mean to stay in business and to make a product that is up to your standards too, like.
Well, it has to be affordable, when it's done down the chain,
Yeah.
So when the chain supply the supply chain has to get their cuts, So as it goes down the chain, it gets a little more expensive, and if it starts expensive, it ends really expensive.
Well, I've been happy with the products, so.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So, hey, what do you do for fun?
Well, some of the things I mentioned, my job, what I do is kind of what I do for fun too. But what I really love to do for fun is I love to go camping. I love to spend time with my family. I love elk hunting, deer hunting. That's turkey hunting. Those are things I enjoy. But I'm fortunate enough to a lot of the stuff I do for my work I do enjoy. So like video editing, it can be frustrating, but when it all starts coming together, man, it's awesome. So I can sit at a desk for 8 hours and edit videos, where back in school, sitting at a desk for 8 hours, learning geography and English and everything else that school had to offer, I was bored out of my mind.
Yeah, forget about it.
But this is it's good. It appeals to me and I enjoy it. So, yeah.
Yeah, we had a little video editing fiasco last night, but it was super simple. Like this program, it was Adobe
Rush or something.
Adobe Rush, but we were just trying to link two parts of a video together, and we were both huddled over the computer for like half an hour, And then finally it all clicked and we just high-fived. Yes! Something like a professional editor would have been done in 2 seconds. We're over here. We got to get this thing together,
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Almost like
And
trying
it's
to
funny, some of that stuff, like editing, if you don't do it, like if there's like a certain treatment you're trying to do to it, if you're not doing it all the time when you're editing, then you're like, how did I do that? So then you got to hit YouTube, like, okay. And then you try to have to figure out, how do I type this in so YouTube knows what I want to know?
Yeah, definitely. If you're trying to do any type of color corrections or anything like that, it's like, oh, dang it. Where was I at with that?
That's way beyond my skill level, that color correction.
Yeah, man.
And yeah. Speaking of YouTube, we're just sitting here talking about this new video you had come out, and I had a question about what you've seen happen with YouTube in the hunting industry, because the last several years YouTube has really just exploded with everybody that's doing elk hunting videos, tours, all the informational things. How has that impacted your guys' business in like, have you seen that huge jump based on like YouTube exposure, or is that like your biggest proponent of business there?
I think it's been really good for business. Number one, brand awareness. If somebody's using your calls on a video and people like what they see, they're like, huh, what's that call? And I don't know, you're probably like this. I'm like this, and I think all the hunters are like this when they watch a YouTube video. They're looking for every little like nuance. Like, what's that guy got in his pocket? They see something peeking out of his pocket. What is that thing? I've had people message me, hey, on your bino case at 3 minutes and 27 seconds into the video, I saw this little thing, like I seen the silhouette of it that you have inside of your pocket of your bino case. What is that?
That's funny.
So, I think people are always looking for more knowledge. They're always looking for a product that maybe will work for them. So, I feel like elk calls, I like to think ours are the best and stuff, but I will say, it's sometimes you just have to kind of try calls until you find the one that just works for you as an individual or person. David number 1, you may like a Maverick call, and David number 2, you may like a black amp, in the Phelps line.
David Crane is David number 2, because that is my go-to. That is my go-to.
I almost said you were going to be David number 2 anyway, but strictly off the number.
But or you may like brand X, but I think it's been good for people to see what there is out there in the world of elk calls and products in general. I think, I feel like people can have a pretty positive influence too, especially, if you teach a little bit of knowledge and teach them some ethics during your show. That will let, people may let that sink in. They may stew on it. Maybe they agree right away. But I feel like I think it's a good thing. Some people will kind of get a little disgruntled and saying, yeah, you YouTube guys are ruining hunting. Mm-hmm. You guys on social media are ruining hunting. But the fact of the matter is, people are in general are getting outdoors more. We saw this during COVID, right?
Yeah, I don't understand how that would be a bad thing, because we are putting, for I guess the social media YouTuber guys, we're putting hunting in the forefront instead of trying to put it in the back burner like what society is trying to do.
Right. Absolutely. Yep. And you see, like in COVID though, like everybody bought RVs. Yeah. You couldn't hardly buy an RV. You try to go camping in the summertime. There are people camping everywhere. Well, 90% of those folks aren't hunters. People just want to be outdoors. So I think I think YouTube and social media, the positive part about it is, what you put in is what you get out. If you're putting out a good positive message, like, ethical hunting, respectful hunting, whatever, if you're putting that out in the world, there's probably more people that are going to let that sink in, and they're probably going to want to do the same thing. If you're doing it for likes and it's all a big facade and you're fake and you're shooting your bow in your bikini. That's all you're doing is looking for likes. You're not really making the world a better place.
No more bikini shooting, Dave. Number 2.
Well, I got something from Steven Ranella. He was doing like these photo shoots where he was like shooting his bow with the shirt off, or he would like dunk his head in a bucket and fling his hair back. And
that's funny.
Yeah, Ranella's doing it up.
In that social media aspect, that's pretty much every single topic, right? You can be talking about basketball or football or anything. You could talk about, and in my world, it's I'm a professional tiler in the construction industry, and you could be a day 2 guy doing your first job and be like, hey everybody, what do you think of this? Here comes 10 banshees. You're like, hey, you're talking to a second day guy here. Like, give them some props, good for effort. Here's what you might want to do in the future. Be positive, helpful, all those things, because it helps people to come up in the right way, and they're going to look up to you in the end. They're going to say, okay, these are the people that have been helping us out, leading me down the right path. And now look at me now. Now I'm a stellar installer.
Yeah, you need that positive reinforcement. I mean, obviously you're not going to get it all the time. You're going to have some haters, but, let that fuel the fire and keep it pushing.
Yeah, it is what it is, man. Social media that internet is a cruel playground.
A lot of trolls out there.
Mm-hmm. Dave had some questions about this video. I'm going to bring it up on the screen here. So this is going to be on our YouTube channel. We just started doing video, and
perfect.
Yeah, we figured we're starting a new year. We almost have a complete year down with the podcast, and we wanted to kind of step it up a notch. And we do have a YouTube channel. It's basically all just hunting. We do have the audio of our podcast, but now we're going to start implementing video. So
perfect.
Yeah. So I did have a couple questions for you on. Now I know this was filmed, back in September, but I know that you probably just got done editing it. That's why it probably came up just about 6 days ago.
Like 2 weeks ago, I was done editing.
So it's fresh.
Oh yeah.
So I had this problem in 21, and it was more or less bulls just hanging up. They would not come in. They would come in to maybe about 100, maybe as close as 80 yards, and then they were getting their cows and boogieing out. And the wind was in my favor. I thought I was doing everything right. Now, looking back at it, I was probably way too aggressive with my bugling, and they just got uncomfortable and boogered out. But I noticed that, you were kind of running into the same problem. Now, for your video, you were in bulls like nobody's business, like a hand in a Dorito bag. Here in Washington, you might get one opportunity and then you don't have any for the next couple days.
Yeah.
What advice would you give somebody would be in like a similar situation that I was in? Because I was actually caller, filmer, and shooter. I didn't have anybody with me.
You got to subcontract some of that stuff.
The filming thing just went to I did have a bigger camera, but it went strictly to GoPro once things started heating up. So that was not that big of a deal. But it was the shooter caller problem. I had a bull working for probably 3.5 hours, and it was like a yo-yo effect, just kept on yo-yoing. And I noticed when I would bugle and have a chuckle with it, that aggravated him. But I noticed when he was chuckling and stabbing his cows all over the place. Like, come on, ladies, we got to get out of here. So then I stopped. Once I stopped and got closer to his cows, because he had so here in Washington, we have a problem with foot rot. He had a group of about 6 to 7 cows with foot rot. And I was getting in between those cows, and he had about 8 cows that didn't have foot rot, and that's where he was at. He was mainly with the cows that could move, but he was getting pissed off that I was in between them, and that's when he started coming up. But what would you do to close the distance in that? Like, go quiet, or?
Well, it all kind of depends on terrain features. So I don't like, if you remember back to the video, it was a lot of open country there. For
Yeah.
instance, there's this one part there towards the end of the video where there was this big bull up on the hill there. He just wouldn't come in. He was kind of like some open aspens. You could kind of see him up there, and he raked his horns a little bit, and then he just kind of moved off.
Yep, this is actually it right here, Dave. You're
Yeah, I
right
got
on.
the video
I've
on
watched the video probably 18 times now.
Right. So the biggest problem with that scenario, which I hated that scenario, was there was just way too much open ground between me and that bull. He can stand up there on the hill and look down there 100 yards. And I snuck up as far as I could. And my caller, he was probably another 100 yards behind me.
Mm-hmm.
But he just was not going to break loose because he could see a long ways. And that's the tricky part about setups, right? If your bull you're messing with can see a pretty good distance, either out of your effective range, or he can stand back behind some brush and kind of look and see where you're at, then they're going to hang up, and they're going to stand there until they see an elk or they lose interest.
Okay. So I was on top of this bull.
Yeah. So if I'm solo, especially solo,
mm-hmm.
and it's pretty thick country, as long as I don't see eye to eye with that bull and he can't see my feet, let's say I got a big bushy tree between him and me and a lot of brush,
mm-hmm.
I will walk straight at him. I'll bugle and I'll walk straight at him. If not run, I'll charge right towards him. And a lot of times they're looking for that little leap of faith. So for instance, it's like those bulls, they'll close the distance and then they hang up. They're kind of saying, I've come all this way. It's your move. The ball is in your court now. It's your move. So if you just kind of hang back and just call from where you're at, a lot of times they'll just kind of lose interest and move off. But if I feel like it's kind of been a stalemate for very long at all, it's like, okay, I'm moving up. And I almost do it to a fault to where sometimes maybe I will be a little too aggressive and kind of push them off. But more often than not, they'll hold their ground as I'm stomping up there. And as I'm moving up towards them, I'm kicking every rock and breaking every branch I can. I'm making as much noise as I can. And I rip a big, mean-ass bugle. And a lot of times they'll show themselves. Or they'll kind of move off a little bit. And then wherever they move to is a better spot to set up. Like, maybe I've got a bunch of crap in the way where I can't shoot. But once he kind of breaks loose, and if he moves off 50 yards or so, or 100 yards, and then I move up, now I've moved into a better position where if he steps out a little bit, I've got him.
Nice.
So but that setup, like, it's your situation is not unique. I mean, it happens to me. It happens to a lot of people. When bulls come in and hang up, and when they do, I can always look around and be like, well, I see why he hung up. He can see down here, and I'll plainly see there's no elk, or I'm not making my move. I'm playing too reserved. If I'm not pushing up towards him after he's come a long ways, then it's basically my turn to make a move.
Yeah, and that
had it where I've moved up 5 yards and then bam, they pop out. I've had it because they hear me coming. They're like, well, I want to see him now. I hear him. I can see him. I'm going to see this sucker. And then they just pop out. And it's not always like, a frontal shot. A lot of times elk are going to want to kind of make themselves look big, right? So they're going to kind of present themselves at a side, broadside view. So it's not always a frontal type presentation.
Mm-hmm.
Seemed like a frontal type presentation. It maybe is a bull that's committed and he's just walking right, walk right over you. It seems like that's the kind that where you have a frontal presentation. Whereas a lot of times when we're doing this more aggressive scenario where I move up on them, whenever I do see him, it's either a broadside or he's turned to leave, and I see his rump, right?
Yeah.
And if they're turning to leave and they're walking away, if he's not stopped and looking over his shoulder, I'm moving. If I see that he's moving away, I pick up my pace and I charge right after him and scream a big bugle.
Yeah, spin around quick before he gets stuck in the butt. He's like, oh shit, he's coming.
Right. And it's almost like Simon Says, right? So if he's moving away, I'm moving. If he stops and turns, I'm just like, I'll stop mid stride. Like, you got to be ready for it. And I typically don't have an arrow knocked at this time. Sometimes I do, but most of the time I try not to because I'm clumsy. I don't want to shish kebab myself.
Yeah,
that'd be terrible.
But I'll move up. I've done this several times, and it may take four. As they're moving away, it may take four times you charging after them to where he finally turns around and he's like, "Okay, what's up?" And he turns around and comes back in, and then you get a shot. But
at what point?
But if not, I mean, if you spook him off, at least you played the game, right? If you just kind of do the wallflower thing and sit back and just don't really do anything, that bull's probably going to think you're a coward anyway and not play with you tomorrow. That's just been my experience.
At what point in your process do you decide, like, I'm knocking up now? This is my time to knock up. When does that flag go off?
And when I think it's going to happen, right? It's like, so if I'm set up, as soon as let's say I've been calling it to a bull and he's coming, as soon as I stop and set up, I knock up. Or if I charge up. As soon as my feet stop, I pull out my arrow and knock up then. As soon as I have an arrow knocked, then I range. I don't do any range finding until I got my arrow on the string, because your range does you no good to range find if you don't have an arrow on the string.
Yeah,
right.
True. That's true for sure.
And a lot of times if I'm running this game, this play, then you're not going to need your rangefinder anyway, because a lot of times it's pretty close quarters, pretty thick stuff, because they would have seen you if it's very open. So it's going to be like a top pin situation anyway if they do turn around and come in.
Yeah, what pin am I using? The only one that matters.
That's right. All you need is one pin, right?
We had hunted Mount Adams Wilderness area years ago.
Oh yeah.
And so me and my buddy, we hiked down this big old cliff. I mean, it was not a cliff, but it was a really steep hill, basically. It was almost like a cliff. And we got down the bottom. We were going to hit this road and then hike this long road out to this lower road in the National Forest area, and then hike the road back up to where we had parked. And it was probably like a 5-mile loop. And we got halfway down this steep hill. We started seeing all this elk sign. So he says, well, let's cow call from here. And we was kind of just sitting there. We were looking for a bugle. And he cow called 3 or 4 times. And all of a sudden a stick snapped. And this elk was walking in on us at like 25 feet. A bull elk. I mean, and none of us are knocked up. So I just did, I was like, I'm not even going to look at him. After I seen him the first time, I started knocking up. That sucker boogied. I had a shot that I missed because I couldn't get fully drawn. I thought I was drawn, and I was probably 3/4 of the way. And it did a weird thing because I had one of those rests that lifts up when you draw back. The rest lifts, right? It was like the old trophy taker first one. This is a long time ago. And so my arrow went like way low because it wasn't even on the rest fully extended. But after that point, I was like, you know what? If we're going to call, I'm going to have an arrow knocked, because that sucker came in 100% silent, and he walked right into us. But this was much thicker area. I mean, you could only see 20 feet because that's where he popped out. It was not a conducive area to getting. We call that guy the master of the 5-yard shot, and that's what you had to be. You got to be ready for the 5-yarder, and that was super thick. So
yeah.
But I typically don't knock an arrow either. If I'm walking around or doing something, I'm not having an arrow knocked or anything like that, unless I feel like I'm going to shoot from this position. Simply because years ago, it's probably like 3 or 4 years ago, we had a hunter actually get killed by his buddy with that crossbow incident. Guy
stabbed him in the back.
Yeah, stabbed him in the back with his crossbow bolt, and the guy didn't even make it back to the truck. So.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, it was liver, and he was done. So, being aware of your surroundings and what you're doing, don't get too excited and start running around with knocked arrows on your string, because anything can happen. I mean, you could,
right.
God forbid, the worst happens on something that's supposed to be fun. You're supposed to be enjoying your time, and it does happen. One time is too many times, and it's 100% preventable. So, yeah, I appreciate hearing you say that, because all you see is you guys out there hunting and these elk running around, and you can only think what's going on, but not assuming the worst. But it's good to hear you guys are doing everything 100% safe. It's awesome.
Yeah, I try as much. Sometimes I'll catch myself. If I have to move up just a little bit, I'll stay knocked up. But man, if I have to go very far, typically I will put my arrow away because, like I say, I'm clumsy. I fall down a lot. And
you're not the only one.
It hasn't burnt me really too many times. I've always figured I can knock up and get ready and draw my bow back pretty quickly. So it hasn't really bit me. But it's to your point of like you were saying in that area that bull came in so super fast and quiet. I've had that happen myself, standing on an old logging road and, fresh elk tracks. I'm like, oh, I think we'll call here. You make a couple calls and all you hear is hoofbeats coming and you're like, oh crap, it's too late. They're on you.
Yeah.
So, I have kind of made some slight adjustments to those kind of scenarios. If I see a bunch of smoking hot tracks and I think they could be close, I won't stand right in that old logging road or right in the trail. Maybe I'll take a couple steps somewhere and put a big tree behind me or a big bush behind me, and just anticipate, okay, where's an elk going to come from? I think I might knock an arrow here just in case. And you'll know within, just a short amount of time if you need to put your arrow away or if you need to draw it back and shoot. But those kind of things are pretty uncommon, but those are definitely rookie mistakes to get caught with your pants down in the road like that. And I'm embarrassed to say I've definitely done that more than once over the years. So sometimes I have to stop myself like, hey, wait, dummy, you've done this before. Don't stand in the middle of this old logging road or don't stand right in the wide open of this meadow. Go get somewhere where you can shoot before you call.
Yeah, at one point I thought, I should probably write a book on elk hunting on what not to do. Because I had screwed up so many things. Like every time, God, it was frustrating. That was in my earlier years before I'd even killed the first elk. I was just, all the experience I had was just terrible. But it was all like one step in the right direction. Didn't do that again. Not going to do that again. And then eventually it came together. It's like all these bad things led into one time where I put it all together just right. And from that point on, it was more like, okay, now I know why I had to have all those hard lessons.
Yeah,
got everything put together and I got this stack of DVDs right here. Those DVDs, I studied them, just watching people hunt elk, all those different, Primos and Titan Outdoors, all these different guys hunting things. And, they had this one episode or video where they were on this hunting ranch, it was like a Colorado, it wasn't a ranch, but it was a Colorado elk hunt, just an open place. And every time they would draw their bow, the elk's head would be behind a tree. But every time the elk would stop, it's when its head came out from behind the tree and its body was covered by the tree. And I was like, okay, what is your fix to this? Because I concluded after watching this happen like 50 times and on a bunch of different videos that people think I should draw when they can't see me, but their head's behind the tree, but they hear something or something alerts them to that draw, unless they're just completely oblivious to it. But all the videos I watched, something alerted them to the draw, and when they took that next step, it put their kills on right behind that tree.
Yeah.
What is your solution to that? Like draw when they're just going towards behind the tree? You're kind of like in a catch-22. If they see you, maybe they'll stop in their tracks right away. Maybe they'll run right away, But
I'm watching body language as they're coming in. So if they look on high alert, right? If they're like on high alert, they're taking a couple steps and they're looking and taking a couple steps and looking, they got their head held high and they're looking and smelling, got their ears faced forward. I'm going to be super careful when I draw my bow. I don't want to draw it too soon. But if they're coming in head down, and they seem to be just on a mission, then I'll be like, okay, I'll wait. But I will typically wait to the last possible place where I should draw my bow. I will draw it at the last spot. So if I can see him coming, he may walk for quite a while from the first place I could draw my bow. I may let him walk it quite a bit further before I ever draw my bow, because I don't want to have to hold my bow at full draw for a long time, which I've had to do that. And I've drawn too soon and then had to let down, or I've drawn too soon and then I think the longest I held my bow for, it's like a minute and 30 seconds or 2 minutes or something. On one of the Born and Raised videos, I did that in Wyoming.
Oh yeah, that was on one of the Land of the Freeze. I think it was.
Yeah,
that might have been like. Was it the first one or was it the 2.0?
Season 1.
It was season 1.
Season 1. Yeah, that bull was raking and he was kind of moving in and out behind a bush, and I was just waiting for the perfect shot. But I drew my bow a couple times, and then I drew it, and then he popped out. It's like, oh, kind of quartering towards me, and he kind of turned around and this and that. And I finally held it as long and then as I could, and then he finally kind of turned away, and I got him. But I watch a lot of. I consume a ton of YouTube videos, and I'm always watching, and I'm watching people hunt, and I'm like, no, don't draw your bow yet. No, oh, they drew their bow. They draw way too soon, or they draw way too late, right? So you can't wait till you're out of places to draw your bow. It's like you have to have their head behind something to draw your bow, and if they're not acting like they're super alert, then you can draw your bow a little sooner. But sometimes I will hedge my bets on not drawing my bow until I feel like he's kind of relaxed enough to where it's like, well, I think I'll come out and I won't spook him away. But yeah, there's a lot of things too you got to consider. So the bull goes behind a tree and you draw your bow. I got nailed on this once. My body and my bow was behind the tree, was covered by the tree, but my backpack wasn't. And when I drew, my body moved, and he seen the movement from my backpack that was exposed, and he buggered off. So
the one thing you couldn't see is right behind you. You know, like, damn.
Yeah.
Just when you thought you knew it all, that backpack got you.
He's got me good.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then I feel like a lot of people draw their bow way too fast and they way too much movement. So
yeah, got to maintain control and be steady.
Yeah. If I think at all there's a possibility that a bull's going to see me, I'm going to draw that thing so slow, just creep that thing back. And it's pretty difficult, but you just got to practice drawing your bow like that when you're doing all your shooting in the backyard. If you practice drawing your bow super slow, then you develop, your muscles get better at it and you become more disciplined to do it. And then it seems natural when you're in that, high pressure situation. But I watched this video. This is from the Full Draw Film Tour from 2012, 13 maybe. Mm-hmm. This guy named Russ Meyer. He's from the Boise area here. One heck of a hunter, man. That guy's killed more big game with a bow than, geez Louise, man. He's a great hunter. Anyway, this bull is coming into him, and he's kind of sitting down. It's really steep. He's kind of sitting down, and he's completely exposed. But he draws his bow so slowly, like a sloth. He draws it so slow.
Like no movement.
Doesn't even move.
He just like molasses, pulls it back, and then when that bull's like 5 yards or less, and he whacks him. It was like one of the coolest moments, and it was just, I want to be Russ Meyer.
Yeah,
Every
that
time
is
I draw
cool.
my bow, I think of that. I'm like, okay, draw it as slow as you can. But there's times, when you got to rip that sucker back quick too. And like on that Utah film, I yanked it back pretty quick, right before that bull popped out. But he was on a mission. I could tell he kind of hung up inside the timber a little bit, and then he started coming again. I'm like, oh yeah, he's gonna expose himself. So as soon as his head went behind that tree, I ripped her back and luckily to get a shot.
You got me all excited now. I want to watch that video.
Dude.
Yeah. I didn't even know it came out, dude. I've been sick all last week, so I haven't really been doing anything. Let's take a quick commercial break for our sponsor, Phelps Game Calls, and then we come back. We're going to talk about more fun.
All right. Hey, everybody, if you are looking for a game call that is elk, turkey, deer, predator calls, waterfowl calls, we highly recommend PhelpsGameCalls.com. Professional grade game calls made for every hunter.
All right, welcome back. We're talking with Dirk Durham from Phelps Game Calls, and we were just talking about drawing our bow with full control. or not at all. Just like you could have to yard it or just creep it. I mean, the discernment is going to be in the moment, I guess. And it's interesting to see all the different things you have to consider. But in this whole dialogue we were having about hunting videos and stuff, I had this little thought in my head. There was a TV show. Regis Philbin was on there. What was it called? It was Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, right? He's like, here's a question for you. X, Y, Z, pick your choice. A, B, C, and D. And you can ask an audience and all this other stuff. Well, it would be super funny if they had compiled a bunch of YouTube videos and it was just like, here's what happens. And then you show the video going up to it, and then you have Jason sitting in a chair, and then there's like, does he A, bling, bling, bling? Does he just see how much money he can win? It'd be like a funny little, and obviously there's one that's thrown
the
out
right
there.
answer.
Yeah, the one's the right answer. But why do you think that, Jason? Like, what do you see coming into this thing? This elk, or even you could be in the chair and this elk's coming in. Oh no, he drew way too early, and you didn't see him creep that thing back. See how fast he drew? I knew it was going to spin away right away. And just to see, like, just by watching and in repetition and how you're accustomed to hunting these animals, like how in tune you are with what other people are doing. Just to hear and see that, I think that'd be a really funny segment.
That would be funny.
Super fun.
Yeah, put that.
Well, I mean,
together.
you guys are running around looking like Hulk Hogan, and I think I've posted that thing like 6 times on my Instagram. Like, these guys are funny.
Yeah, you got to have fun, man. Sometimes it can be boring. You're out there hiking around and you're just like, gosh, can we see something? Or can we seal the deal? And I don't know about you guys, but
well, they almost got it done looking like Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan.
Yeah,
I'm not kidding. Yeah. They had some stuff going on bright colors too. Like, it was insane. What was that? Was that one on one of the Land of the Frees as well? Or was that a separate project?
So yeah, that was one of the Land of the Frees. That was Land of the Free 3, maybe. That was 2019.
Man.
Dude, it was the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life.
I saw. You bring me back. I remember. So many things that's happened in the last couple of years. All the negative COVID impact stuff.
Well, that was just like a blip, so it all just kind of runs together.
Well, there was time during that blip. Looking back, you're like, oh, that was fast. During the time when you're at home, I mean, were you in a state where they had a lockdown where you couldn't like leave your house? Dirk, you were in Idaho the whole time, right?
I was in Idaho the whole time, and
lucky dog, man.
When it first came out, we're watching the news, and my wife and I are sitting there looking. I was like, "Is this how it's all going to end?" Like, this is the very beginning of COVID, and nobody knew anything, and they're like, "Oh my God, this is terrible," and we're like, "What the heck?" And then as time went by, of course, different information came out, but where we were at, we were a small town, North Idaho, and they didn't really shut a lot of things down. They kept restaurants and things in business, kept things open, but and we didn't really wear masks at all. But when we moved to Boise, kind of right in the middle of that whole thing, and down here it was a different story. A lot of things weren't open. You had to wear a mask everywhere you went, and it's just completely different. But yeah, it was nice to get through all that, because everybody was, people need to be together.
Yeah, for sure. That's
hibernating in your home's no good.
Well, we had a totally different thing in Washington than Idaho, and it was very weird, because I remember the last day, like I bought my truck the very last day before they shut down COVID, and I was like, you know what? I remember 9/11. I did some silly stuff post 9/11 out of reaction to terrorism, right? Like, everybody had the speculation on terrorism. They're like, oh, they got secret weapons no one knows about. And we're talking about these guys like they were the world's #1 superpower, So everybody's freaking out, and all these terrorist things. The airways are shut down. So I was 18 years old, and I was like, oh my gosh, they're talking about gas is going to be $5 a gallon. I'm like paying $6 for diesel. So they're like, gas can be $5 a gallon. Oh my God, the sky is falling. And it was like $1.20 or $1.30. And I was like, oh man, I need to get rid of my truck. I can't afford this $5 gas. So this time on COVID, I was like, you know what? I've done some other things in life that have made me look back and go, I regret that. So I went ahead and bought my truck the very last day they shut down. Well, now, I mean, they called me a year later wanting to buy it for $15,000 more than I bought it for after, they had no more vehicles because of the shutdowns and stuff.
Right.
I was like, holy smokes, called my wife and I was like, babe, should I sell the truck? And she's like, no way, when are you going to get another one? We need this truck. I was like, yeah, true that. I don't need to sell that truck. So, but there was a 2 or 3 week period where every day when you wake up and you're at home, because they shut down construction here and everything.
Yeah.
I was in my house. I was like, what are we going to do today? Like, what is going on? It was pretty wild just to be locked in like that, to where that blip seemed like a long time. And now looking back, it's like, dude, that was so fast. Almost like every hunting season. You get there on day one, you're like, this is going to be the greatest for us 2 weeks. For you, like 3 months. For us, we're just going out there for 2 weeks, and you look forward. You have all these high expectations, and next thing you know, you're breaking down camp, and it's just like a somber, sad. You're like, dude, that went way too quick.
Well, COVID lasted way too long. I'm done talking about that crap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would. My segue was to maximize the time you have.
Yeah, definitely.
And when you're in the woods and you're you get there on day one and you feel like this is just gonna be the longest trip ever. This is gonna be the best time. If you're fully prepared for it and you go out there, do the most you can do. Don't leave anything on the table. And I've had years that I had where I'm like, I'm not going to move forward. I thought I had something in the bag and it didn't work out, or I could have gone another mile and I didn't. I told you about on the bike trip with Chris when he's like, I'm not going in another pedal. And I went up to like 300-400 yards and there was a whole herd of elk in front of me. And he's, next thing you know, he's hauling ass up that hill on that bike. He was all of a sudden had energy to do it, But those are the moments I look back at. I'm like, man, you let these things go by and next thing you know, it's over. You have all this your hunting season's over. So I try to maximize that and using good calls, learning technique,
Yeah. Well, a guy gets a false sense of security on day 1 and 2 and 3. Like, you're like, man, I got plenty of time. I don't have to hit it quite as hard. I got 8 days more. I got 7 more days,
Next thing you know, crap, I only got 2 days.
And then pretty soon it's Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, I wish I'd have been a little more energetic or a little more, spend a little more effort hunting, on day 1 and 2. Mm-hmm. I think that's definitely a trap a guy could fall into. So, because like anytime I start thinking of that, like on day 1 or 2, I was like, man, I got so much time left. I immediately self-correct and be like, we don't have any time. We have to hunt today like we're going to hunt the last day, because the days click by and before you know it, it's time to go home.
Yep. We always try to, we usually have like 2-man groups and we spread out as far as we can go and, calculate all the data that we got from the day pretty much when we get back to camp, only because you can scout as much as you want and those elk are going to do whatever they want and they're not going to be in the same spot all the time. So where you were scouting during the summer, they might not be there even the very next day. So we always just like, all right, we spotted, this herd of elk or, there's nothing over here, blah, blah, blah. And then, those first couple of days are pretty crucial for how we hunt. And, if you're not putting in the effort, we're not going to have any elk anywhere. Cause we're hunting sticker bush thickets for like miles.
Well, Jason's from our side, and he knows. He's hunting this thick stuff. And there's a couple of people that have said it the best, I think. And, some people will never come back and hunt here. There's some pretty famous people that have said like, I'm never going back to hunt Western Washington again. And it is that type of space. And, it's not like everybody thinks it is, when we say like jungle, you understand, I went to Idaho, hunted Unit 4 in Idaho last year.
Oh yeah.
That shit, Dirk. I told myself, I was like, I'm not coming back here. Some of those slopes are like 4,500, 6,000 feet on one side, and we were hiking over there. This is a rifle tag, me and my buddy. And I was like, dude, how how do you hunt here? Because it's all just like you're hunting one hillside, one slope, one day. And it's huge valleys and huge hilltops. And so I was like, this is not what I'm used to. I'm used to everything being like 400, 500, 600 feet tall, nothing real massive. And then really thick. So you had time to work through the terrain. And you couldn't see 200-300 yards. Over there you can see up to the top. You're like, geez, there's really nothing on this hill. Then you walk around the corner. He's like, well, let's just keep going. Let's keep going. You walk around the corner, there's like this little huckleberry bush or something, and out pops some whitetail. You're like, oh, shit. If I'd have known there was going to be deer around here, And, yeah, that's pretty much it. It was just different. And, I learned a good lesson over there. And, I could have been more energetic on that hunt for sure.
Sounds like a perfect bear spot to me.
It's tricky in Idaho. It's not like you think. Like everybody says, there's bears all over Idaho. There are, but it ain't like you're just gonna walk around and see them all the time.
Oh yeah.
I didn't see a single bear when we were there, and then there was some sign, but there was a lot of moose sign, a lot of deer sign, a lot of elk sign, but it was old, and I'm not sure how old it was, but there was a ton of it. Massive amount. Yeah. But that's kind of how it is. You got that. You got to take advantage of that terrain. You got to just put forth the effort and go for it.
Yeah, it's funny. Idaho's weird because there'll be hillsides that you could sit and watch for all season and never seen a living creature on them. It's like
that's how I felt.
Everything. It's like in the draws. There's some water and there's lots of feed over here, and then there's big timber and like, oh man, I could post up here and sit for a day and probably see some animals, and you won't see a freaking squirrel hardly.
Yeah.
And there, the areas that have a lot of bears, you'd think, oh yeah, I should be able to see a bear in the springtime milling around. Some of that stuff, you just don't see the bears. But a lot of that brush is so tall, you couldn't see one anyway because, it's waist high or something, and those bears kind of slip around through it where you wouldn't see them. But, yeah, it's crazy country in North Idaho, man. Every time I ever go to North Idaho, I would say, I'm never coming back. For some stupid reason, I talk myself back into it.
Because you have the courage. You're like, I got the wherewithal to get this done in this land, this godforsaken hills over here. Right next to yeah. So how many days a year do you guys spend out hunting in various states? Like, what's your season look like?
I left home on the 28th of August, I think, and I only slept in my bed 3 times in September. I was gone, and then in October, I was home for a while. Well, wait, I take that back because I had to come home early this September. So September 21, I slept three nights, but I had to come home early because my wife had appendicitis unexpectedly. So I had to cut my Idaho archery elk hunt short. So I came home before season was over to take care of her. But then I left again on the 13th of October, and I was gone for a few days there. And then I was gone again.
I had these leg cramps or leg pains. And what is one trick that you guys have used? Maybe it's not a trick. Maybe it's, just a secret that you guys are using in camp. Something that you utilize that makes you be able to keep going. Because it sounds like, as many days as you're hunting, you're probably in pretty good goat shape, and for the average Joe, right? Your legs are cramped up. Day 6 in the hunt, you've gone hard. What's something you can do that would kind of like give your legs new life?
So one thing I've kind of noticed, like back when I was just a straight water guy, then I had issues with cramping. I had issues with fatigue quite a bit. Just like, man, I'm just out of gas. I can't go. Halfway through the day, it's just like, I just got nothing. I have the desire, but my legs don't work. Then I started drinking, supplemental stuff, whether you're drinking the Mountain Ops or you're drinking Wilderness Athlete or whatever brand X kind of supplements. But so every day of September, every day I go hunting, I start off with 32 ounces. I don't drink any coffee. I'm a big coffee guy, but at elk camp I don't. I started out with 32 ounces of water, and I've been doing the Wilderness Athlete. It's all build a Superman. So you get hydrate and recover, and then energy and focus. So like 32 ounces of that. And then on top of it, I'll throw a liquid IV packet inside there too. So, man, I just got a ton of stuff, and I gulp that down first thing in the morning, because it seems like no matter how much water you drink the day before, you always get kind of dehydrated.
Yeah.
So I try to like hydrate first thing in the morning. A lot of times I won't even eat any breakfast. Like this year, I didn't eat any breakfast. I just hydrated, and then I would eat something mid morning, and then at lunch or whatever. But man, once I started, especially at this combination here, I don't get too sore. I don't feel too bad. I don't eat a bunch of crap though, especially this year because I have a bad ankle. I've been gimping around since mid-December because I had surgery on it. So I can't even walk on it right now. But this September, I tried not to eat any goodies. You know, typically September, oh man, I'm going to burn all these calories and eat Snicker bars and fruit roll-ups. But the last couple of years, I've kind of quit doing that, especially this year. So no beer in camp, no goodies, none of that stuff. And that really cuts down on my inflammation. My ankle felt a lot better, but I still had problems, but it felt better this year than it did the year before.
Nice.
So, no, I think, drinking alcohol in camp, I mean, I'm not against drinking alcohol. I mean, I like a cold beer or whatever, just as much as the next guy, but man, at elk camp, it dehydrates. And I think anytime you're trying to gain better physical fitness or better cardio or any of that stuff, then I think alcohol will rob you from whatever you're doing. So I felt like I always feel better if I don't drink in camp.
Mm-hmm.
And then get good sleep. Seems like September the days are long and the nights are short, but I sleep I don't backpack hunt very good because I don't sleep with a crap on the ground. I've got a really good pad. I got all this stuff, but I still don't sleep very good on the ground. So if I can, I would hike an extra hour or two in the morning just to sleep on a nice cot with a good big cushy pad, just to make sure I have good rest every night.
Super important.
But yeah. And then stay away from the junk food, eat lots of high protein, high calorie stuff, whether you're nuts and jerky and dried fruit and stuff like that, during the day. And then, eat like a freeze dried meal at night and drink a bunch of water and do it again in the morning.
That's how you lose 30 pounds in a week right there.
Right.
It'll do it. It's like every elk season comes around, man, I lose a bunch of weight that first week. It's like, it just drops off. You're like, these pants are freaking getting worn out. They're like loose now. These are supposed to be good. It's funny.
Exactly.
How about you, Dave?
Oh, I drop a lot of weight and I eat good. I do the Dirk program and I eat pretty good and try to stay as hydrated as possible, but I always end up dropping a couple pounds, and I'm already kind of small.
Yeah, he's like, I don't have pounds to drop. I'm like, well, I need to be on this extra. Yep, awesome.
Yeah, it's brutal for skinny guys, man. They drop off pretty quick. I seem to have a few extra pounds to lose compared to a lot of skinny guys, and I've hunted with skinny guys before, and after 10 days in Wyoming, they look like they're ready to die. And I'm like, yeah, I'm still pretty good. I got a little bit of left here,
Yeah. Don't let them confuse you. They might look fit, but they're dying inside. They just don't want to say nothing. That's me.
It's like like being on Survivor in the last mile. We're like, we just got to make it to the X. You're dying on the way out. Half your shoes are missing. It's dang.
Well, Dirk, before we let you go, I have just a couple more questions pretty fast. Number one, what is a 2023 hunt that you are like dying to get after?
Man, I feel like this year I don't have a plan. I don't have any kind of a plan of where I'm going to go or anything. So I do plan on trying somewhere new where I've never hunted in Idaho here. So I'm going to spend a ton of time scouting this summer. So I really look forward to that. Don't know where that might be, but I've got 2 or 3 places I've got units that I've kind of picked, and I'm going to do my due diligence. Hopefully my ankle's feeling good enough to actually put some boots on the ground and do some hiking and stuff, set some trail cams. But yeah, you just never know. I was going to put in for Wyoming, but I think I'm just going to buy a point again. Wyoming, they're pulling some weird stuff with their tags, and I feel like this year there's probably going to be a lot of people try to dump their tags in Wyoming because they say next year they're going to jack the price way up.
That's what I've been hearing as well. Wyoming's going to be very hard to hunt, and then Colorado might also be doing something funky where the over-the-counter tags are pretty much going to go bye-bye.
Yeah.
It's the rumor right now, but the rumor mill is strong.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's some propositions in Colorado for sure. And so I'm going to apply for Montana. I'd like to go to Montana and hunt again, but we'll kind of just see how everything kind of plays out and what tags present themselves, opportunities present themselves. But half of me wants to go back up to the stupid, brushy, thick, nasty, no elk North Idaho. But, I don't think I will, but who knows?
Yeah, it's like, it just has this magnetism to it. It's I don't know. I have a spot like that to where it's the challenge of the area, right? You know what's going to happen. Like in your head, you're like, I know what's going to happen if I go back here. But yeah, I find myself back in the same spot over and over because I know that I've had good times there. And I'm like, I'm going to go back, to old Trusty. And she keeps letting me down, like at some point in time, we're going to have a forever breakup. And I'm going to be like, I'm not going here anymore. That's kind of how I am with Mount Adams. I love hunting down there. And that is some beautiful country. It's as pretty as anywhere. And it's Western Washington.
But it has like an east side feel.
It's weird. East side trees, man. It's almost like it's a crazy difference in the foliage and the terrain. So that's why I enjoy going there. I've never gone there and not seen bucks and shot deer. And I've always seen bears. And I think 3 out of the 5 times I hunted there, 3 out of the 5 seasons, we either were on elk, killed elk. There was only the first year that was really bad, and we didn't get on anything. But they had a bad kill, bad winter. So we were finding like balls of elk fur, no bones, nothing. Like they just bedded down and disintegrated into the ground. And there was mice tracks. Have you ever found a spot like that, Dirk, where there's just balls of fur laid up in like 20 of them?
No. I've always found some bones with it, but I have found just like a big bunch of fur out in the middle and no bones at all, but just like the fur off of one elk right there. I don't know if like a bear or wolves dragged the rest of the carcass off where I couldn't find it, but it was weird.
We were in this spot. They had, in this particular season, there was a bad snow. It was like 3 or 4 feet in 24 hours. And they had,
wow.
Everything got socked in. They had guys in Jeeps were lost. They had one guy lost for like 3 days, 4 days.
Oh, yeah, I remember
and the
that,
snowmobiler, like they were ready to call it off because they couldn't see anything. And they had helicopters and everything. But this one snowmobiler was like, no, I'm just going to go 1 more mile. And he went down 1 more mile, found the truck, but it was covered completely in snow. And the guy just said he saw this crack and he was like, that's weird. And the people were in there. And he saved them, called rescue and everything. But so it was the year after that, and we were hiking in. We found 1 ball of fur, and it almost looked like a toupee. I mean, it was laid down just like a toupee. And then we walked like another 10 feet, and there's another ball. And there's all these little lines in the ground, like someone had drug sticks, like a kid would drag a stick on a dirt road, that type of line. But it was in the pine needles. Like there was no pine needles in these grooves. It was just dirt. And so I was like, what the heck is going on here? It's weird. It's like almost like a scary movie. And ultimately there was about 20 of these balls of hair laid up like toupees, no bones. But what it was the rodents underneath the snow eating the bones. Just totally just took the animals away. Only thing left was hair.
Huh.
And that was
Crazy.
that was the spookiest thing I'd ever seen. I was like, "Ooh, let's get the hell out of here." That was bad news right there. So
Well, it might have been Bigfoot.
could have been.
Don't forget Bigfoot.
Could have been Bigfoot. He just zapped the boat life right out of him or something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was super sketchy. So yeah. What else, Dave? What's the last question?
The last question I have for you, Dirk. In 2023, is there a new call that everybody needs to be looking out for?
Absolutely. I can't tell you too much, but yeah, we usually do our new call launches around June, July. So
Perfect time for elk season.
Yeah, right when everybody's getting ready to gear up to go hunt. So you'll see a new call come out then, and I promise you're not going to be disappointed. It's going to be really cool.
Got to call it the one timer. You just blow on it once and that's it. They come right in.
The one timer.
The one timer. Awesome. Well, Dirk, I appreciate you coming on the show, speaking with us, taking time out of your day. I know it's late. It's almost 10 o'clock your time, or is it 9 o'clock your time?
He's an hour. Yeah, he's an hour ahead of us. Yeah, it's almost 9.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate it, man. It's been an absolute pleasure and a great time. Can't wait to do it again.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
We'd love to have you back on the show. Also, thank you for actually being like the first sponsor to our podcast. That was huge for us, and we just thank you for everything that you and Phelps have done. And yeah, hopefully we can keep it going and keep growing together. And
it's like that 32-ounce drink you have first thing in the morning elk hunting. You're like, yes, we're doing something right. And we're just now we're 37 episodes in. This is number 37.
Yeah.
So it's going by, and now we'll get the media going on the cameras, and it sounds like Dirk knows how to edit this stuff, so we got an editor.
Perfect. Yeah, send it over. Just send it over. I'll whittle it down for you.
Put it in your Dropbox.
Perfect.
Awesome. Well, thanks again.
Yep. My pleasure, guys. Anytime.
Awesome. Have a good night.
Yep, you too.
Thanks.